They did not rise from the earth like ordinary dead. They were lifted, pulled slowly from peat that clung to them like skin remembering skin. The bodies emerged whole in ways that unsettled even seasoned excavators. There was no collapse of bone, no scatter of fragments. Faces remained intact. Fingernails still traced pale arcs at the ends of fingers. Hair lay flattened against skulls as though pressed only hours before. They looked newly dead. The bog had not rotted them. It had sealed them. At first, farmers found them by accident. A spade struck something that did not sound like wood or stone. Digging stopped. Silence followed. Then the slow reveal of a shoulder, a jaw, a hand curled inward as if grasping at cold. Authorities were called, photographs were taken, and every time the same remark surfaced, whispered or spoken aloud. They look afraid. Bog bodies had been known for centuries, but no amount of precedent softened the shock of proximity. Their skin, darkened by tannins to the color of old leather, stretched tightly over bone. Lips were drawn back in expressions that hovered between surprise and terror. Some mouths were open, teeth bared as if frozen mid-cry. The screams, if they ever came, had long since dissolved into the peat. But their shapes remained. Forensic analysis revealed details that unsettled researchers. Many throats had been slit with careful precision, blades drawn cleanly beneath the jaw. Others bore marks of strangulation cords, sinew, or twisted plant fibers pressed deep into flesh. Some skulls showed blunt trauma. In several cases, all three were present, the so-called triple death. Ritual scholars suggested a convergence of methods meant to satisfy gods whose appetites were complex and unforgiving. These were offerings placed deliberately into the bog, weighted down with branches or stakes to ensure they did not return. Whether they went willingly was another matter. Examinations of stomach contents revealed final meals, gruel, seeds, bread. In some cases, hallucinogenic plants were detected, hinting at altered states before death. But what disturbed scientists most were signs that the dying had lasted longer than expected. Bruising beneath preserved skin indicated restraint. Defensive wounds marked forearms and hands. Fingertips were sometimes worn raw, suggesting prolonged struggle against bindings or earth they had suffered. And the bog had watched. Peatlands are strange environments. Acidic, low in oxygen, hostile to bacteria. They dissolve bone but preserve flesh. Time moves differently there. Decay slows to a near halt, while memory physical accumulates. The bog does not forget. Bodies placed within it are not simply buried. They are absorbed, wrapped in moss and water, held in a perpetual state between presence and absence. The dead do not progress, they remain. Scientists documented heart tissue, lung tissue, even brain matter preserved enough to study. With modern imaging, they reconstructed final moments pressure on the throat, panic responses, oxygen deprivation measured in minutes rather than seconds. The conclusion was unavoidable. These deaths were not swift. And yet the expressions did not soften. Museums began to display the bodies. Glass cases controlled humidity. Dim lighting meant to convey reverence. Informational plaques explained Iron Age belief systems, sacrificial rites, and environmental preservation. Visitors leaned in close, studying eyelashes that still cast shadows. Many did not linger. Complaints accumulated quietly at first: headaches, nausea, a sense of pressure behind the eyes. Some visitors reported dizziness or sudden emotional distress they could not explain. Others felt compelled to leave the gallery immediately, hearts racing, palms sweating. Museum staff noticed patterns. The longer someone stood before the bodies, the stronger the reaction became. Guards reported an oppressive atmosphere in the exhibit halls, especially late in the day. One described the feeling as standing in a room full of people who are waiting for something to happen. Children cried without obvious cause, audio guides malfunctioned near certain cases. Lights flickered, cameras failed, skeptics blamed suggestion. The power of confronting death so directly. The human mind, primed by expectation, filling gaps with discomfort, but the effects did not fade with familiarity. Curators who worked daily among the bodies developed chronic migraines. One archivist began to experience vivid dreams of drowning in darkness, lungs burning, hands bound. Another reported hearing muffled sounds while closing exhibits at night, wet rhythmic noises like breathing through water. No source was found. The bog bodies themselves did not change. They remained perfectly still, perfectly preserved. Yet some swore their expressions shifted depending on angle or light. A slack jaw seemed tighter one day. A brow appeared more furrowed. These observations were dismissed as tricks of perception until drawings began to differ. Independent illustrators tasked with documentation produced sketches that did not match one another. Details were inconsistent, lines diverged. In some cases, the same artist produced different renderings of the same body on different days. They blamed fatigue. They did not mention the sensation that accompanied the work, a feeling of being watched not by the living, but by the dead. Anthropologists proposed that the bodies were never meant to be seen again. The bog was not a grave but a contract, a sealed exchange between human communities and something that dwelled beneath the waterlogged earth. To remove the offerings was to break that agreement. What followed, they warned, was not punishment but reminder. The bog had kept its memory, and it did not want it shared. In recent years, several institutions quietly reduced display times. Some bodies were returned to storage. Others were reburied in controlled peat environments under the justification of ethical stewardship. Public explanations emphasized respect. Private memos spoke of risk. One internal report described an incident in which a visitor collapsed in front of a display, murmuring repeatedly about cold hands on his throat. Medical examination found no physical cause. He refused to explain what he had seen. Another case involved a night guard who resigned without notice after claiming the bodies were no longer quiet. No official statement followed. Meanwhile, bog excavations continued. New bodies were found. Each time the same paradox emerged. They were ancient yet intimate. Removed from the peat, they seemed to lose something indefinable, as though separation itself was a kind of violence. Researchers noted that once exposed to air, the bodies began to deteriorate rapidly unless treated. Preservation required constant intervention. The bog had done it effortlessly. It had held them exactly as they were at the moment of death, not as corpses, but as witnesses, witnesses to ritual, witnesses to fear, witnesses to an understanding of sacrifice modern minds struggle to accept. Standing at the edge of an active peatland today, one can feel it. The ground yields underfoot. Water reflects the sky in broken patches. Beneath the surface, layers of compressed time lie stacked like pages pressed together. Every footprint sinks and slowly fills. Nothing truly leaves. Locals tell stories of lights drifting across the bog at night, low and pale, of voices carried by mist, of sudden chills that grip the throat without warning. Scientists call it folklore, but even they tread carefully. Because the bog does not preserve indiscriminately, it selects. And those it keeps forever, not to honor them, not to remember them, but to ensure that what was done there is never truly finished. The screams may be silent, but they are not gone. They are frozen in the dark, waiting for eyes to meet them, waiting to be seen, counted, and remembered by anyone who dares disturb the bog's keeping.